What's up, guys, and welcome to today's video where I'm going to talk to you about a deadly effective alternative to a chatterbait. All right, guys, so unless you've been living under a rock, you know that a chatterbait is one of the most effective baits out there. But there are times when the chatterbait bite tapers off, especially when you're coming off of your primary feeding times or before you're leading in to your primary feeding times, or when the water's like super cold, or when the water's super hot. So I'm going to talk to you today about putting these dudes down and picking up something new from ZMan that has been deadly effective for me. All right, so that new offering from ZMan is called the Willowvibe. Now, I'm going to explain this as a finesse chatterbait. And for those of you that know me, you know that I would rather rip my fingernails off with pliers, dip it in alcohol, and rub it around in salt than fish a true finesse presentation. So when I need to slow down and catch fish, figuring out a way to not fish a straight up finesse presentation and still be able to catch numbers of fish and quality fish is something that I'm always looking for. And this guy right here is the answer to that problem. So what I mean by that is when the Willowvibe is paired with ZMan's Elastec plastics, you can scoot this thing along the bottom, but when you stop it, because of the buoyancy of the bait, it stands up and you can fish it like a finesse presentation. In fact, you can almost think of this bait as the combination of a shaky head and a scrounger kind of rolled into one bait. You can vibrate this thing along the bottom, you can swim it, you can grind this thing along the bottom, you can hop and pop it, you can scoot it, you can steady reel it, but where it really shines is when that dock bite really starts to take off, because this thing skips way better than any other chatterbait out there. And when you've got those small, young of the year bait fish that are really moving up, this thing right here just seems to excel. Now, I did a lot of fishing with this thing when it first came out, and I paired it with the finesse shads from ZMan, and that finesse shad was a perfect pairing. But a lot of times I wanted to fish it on the bottom. I wanted to fish a little bit slower, and you can't argue with the success of a Ned rig. So what I did is I paired it up with one of these ticklers, and man, my success rate, especially on a little bit bigger fish, went through the roof. It's not to say that this bait with the finesse shad doesn't catch big fish. I just haven't caught as big a fish on it as I caught with the tickler. So if you take these TRD ticklers, right, and you rig it just like you would a bait fish style presentation, the cool thing about this is when you're dragging along the bottom, when you're scooting it along, you get that little bit of extra action from those ticklers. It displaces a little bit more water when you're moving it on a steady retrieve, and it looks like a mud minnow or other forage that isn't, you know, kind of in that shiner, minnow, or shad family, and it just gives them a little bit something different. If I'm fishing over grass, for example, and it's like a light colored hydrilla or milfoil, and I want something a little bit darker to stick out, that thing right there is deadly. When they move up on sandy bottoms, because that sand is reflecting the sun, and that sand is, you know, white to a orange white color, especially down here in the south, that darker color contrasts and sticks out really well, and you catch a lot of fish on it. But let me show you a quick modification that I also really like to do to this thing, and it's way more effective than I thought it would be. And I actually came up with it on accident. I was out fishing. I wanted to throw the Willowvibe because they were schooling on small bait fish. They were scattering them everywhere, and I needed to catch a few fish. So they were schooling on smaller bait fish, and I had thrown a jerkbait. I'd thrown a couple of other things, and I was having moderate success, and I remembered that I had the Willowvibes with me. But I forgot to bring the finesse shads, and I forgot to bring the ticklers, so I just happened to have some regular old-fashioned, you know, TRDs on there. And just for the sake of comparison, this is your TRD, and this is your TRD finesse. So what I like to do is like split the difference between those two and cut it off by just simply using some scissors and then rigging it onto the Willowvibe. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So what I like to do is take my standard Willowvibe head. I like to use a little bit heavier head when I'm doing this because this is more of a deep water presentation. This in particular happens to be a 1/2 ounce. And so you've got your standard TRD finesse and you've got your standard TRD. So what I like to do is split the difference and trim that thing down where it's about halfway between the two sizes. You don't have to be real specific about it, but I just take a pair of braid scissors and I trim that dude off just like so. And then all I'm going to do is rig this on there just like I would any other tail, just like so. I'm going to push it up there. You're going to get a good bite on it, and you're going to pull it back off. so you can get it nice and set up for success. So guys, there you have it. If you're looking for a bait to add a little bit more consistency to your fish catches, especially when the fish aren't feeding very heavily, if you want something that you can combine power and finesse, check out the Willowvibe from the folks at ZMan. Pair it up with a finesse shad, pair it up with a TRD tickler, or pair it up with your standard TRD, downsize it a little bit, leave it full size, experiment. But this thing right here, flat, catches fish. Whether you're looking for numbers, if you want to catch big fish, knock out that tournament limit out of the gate, get a kid or a new angler interested in fishing, and still fish a bait that has real big fish potential, be sure to check out the Willowvibe. Experiment with your rigging on the different type of Elastec tails, and I promise you this thing will put fish in the boat for you.